Good evening. He's
Mm.
showing off his Ariat bottle.
Not intentionally, it was just sort of caught me off guard. I couldn't see how the time was. It was like, oh, poo. But yeah, I'm out of COVID jail. It's amazing. It's been fun. So
How's
I
fresh
made the
air?
most.
You've been good and
What?
isolated?
Fully isolated, did great, and then on Friday I took the day off work and made the most of the sunshine. Went down to Brighton and lapped it up on the beach, as you do. Did a bit of people watching, a couple of cheeky tinnies, and listened to a new album that we'll sort of get onto a little bit, which was the perfect soundtrack to the afternoon. And then went to a new gig venue, somewhere I'd never been before. Ventured outside of London, which is
Is this a
scary enough
thing?
for a lot of people.
Are we
Yeah,
allowed
no,
to do that?
no, it felt very weird. It kind of initially, when I got to the place, it was like like in the League of Gentlemen, where it's like this is for local people, and it's like I was not a local person. Um, so I was down in Hassocks, which is like 2 stops before Brighton on the train. A really cool little pub actually. So country pub, nice sort of family vibe, player and stuff outside. Really nice, modern, looked after inside. Decent beer, food truck with like Greek food outside. So I ate my body weight in halloumi, and really nice music room at the back as well actually. So the pub's called the Hassocks, which is right by Hassocks train station, and I went down and finally saw the Sam Outlaw and Ruthie Collins tour at the third time of attempting it because I weren't able to go to either of the shows in London. Um, that was really good fun. It was really great. So Shine Madders, who's Sam's producer, did a couple of tracks, starting off. Then Ruthie did her set, and then the two of them were on stage playing as like Sam's band as like a trio, and it was really sort of nice, like kind of acoustic vibe, which Sam hasn't done over here for a long time. And a really, really sort of nice venue. Would definitely recommend people kind of checking out. The acoustics there are great. It's The lighting wasn't ideal for anyone that's sort of taking photos or that sort of thing. And I'm not normally one for a seated gig, because I generally like to just sort of stand and sort of loiter with my arms folded back by the bar. But it was cool. It was sort of good vibes, and I'd say Ruthie did 5 songs and came back on. She did a couple, kind of in the middle of the set where it was just her as well, and then Sam was playing tracks across all of his albums, and then for their encore they sort of came and did Unplugged in the crowd, which was really, really nice way to spend a Friday night.
And I guess that's the kind of thing they can do, isn't it? These small, very intimate venues of just step off the stage and go, which would be so unique for them as well.
It was really weird. Like the actual room was a lot bigger than I expected to be, because you sort of like where, like the place up around Islington. I can't think what it's called.
The garage.
It's got like no, more like Angel End of Islington. The Lexington is the place I'm thinking of, where it's kind of where you've got like the back room at the site, kind of attached onto a pub. So it's kind of a bit like that, but like I say, really high room. It just, the sound in there was great. Not saying it's not the Lexington, but it just sort of, it wasn't quite what I expected it to be. Like even when I'd sort of spoken to, I only realised it was a seated gig when I was speaking to Ruthie sort of before kind of went in. But yeah, definitely a place to check out, and they're really big on like their Americana stuff, and get quite a lot of sort of gigs and things down there. So if you are like in the South Coast area, or even in London, because it's only 35 minutes on the train from like London Bridge or Victoria going down, and there's plenty of trains going. So it's there's some cool stuff out of London, definitely. But you're still in this civilized neck of the woods. You're not kind of venturing up north to where the savages like roam free.
And as I say, when it's only 40 minutes, you can justify it for an evening as well.
Yeah. But I don't really know. Kind of, we were sort of like kind of chatting before, which implies that we have actually made sort of plans for kind of what we're doing. But there's been quite a few releases this week, but in terms of actual news, really, there hasn't been kind of too much that's sort of come out in the world of country music.
Nice. We've got, obviously, Drake White has added a couple of dates, hasn't he, to Hiss there's already a couple of festival shows announced, but yeah, he's now. I'm just going to bring it up if I can see it. There we go. So he's added dates. Obviously, Millport, 20th of August, renew. He's going to be in Manchester on the 21st, down in London on the 22nd, Bristol on the 23rd, and then back in at the Long Road on Friday 26th. So yeah, he's kind of filled that week quite nicely. But if you are in Scotland, there is only that one day at Millport.
Yeah. I'd sort of noticed that, like, we sort of touched on, like, Morgan Wayne's added the second date at the garage last week, but it's great to see how well all of her shows have sold, because it looks like both those shows have sold out already, which is great that people kind of really latched onto her with what she's doing. And yeah, not really kind of any other sort of major bits of tour news.
So she is sold out. She's sold out one London date, Glasgow, and Manchester. All sold out.
I tried to look at tickets for the second one, and it kind of see tickets was saying they were unavailable. So it could well be that there's been substantial news. But yeah, the only other thing I was going to sort of touch on with her this week is Jade Helliwell, our good friend. She's launched her Kickstarter because she wants to be bringing out an EP this year, and only sort of launched this week, and she's doing really, really well. So just, if you want to support that project, which definitely will be great. It'll be really cool to get some new music from her out on the way, and that's kind of sort of making kind of big waves as well. And also she has a new podcast as well, similar to like we have, which is her sort of like What's the G&T, which is kind of her sort of chat. And I saw that she's got like Gary and Carl Hancock kind of joining her on hers this week. And yeah, like, that's kind of pretty much all we've sort of seen in the world of country music news-wise. But, obviously the big music news this week, or kind of towards the end of the week, the really sad news about, Taylor Hawkins, the drummer for the Foo Fighters, and I think, for both of us and for a lot of people in their late 20s to, mid 40s especially, the Foos have been like that big iconic rock band that we've all kind of grown up with and sort of seen. And you just sort of think about him as well. Like, Taylor Hawkins is the drummer for basically the greatest drummer of all time. So it's not an easy gig to kind of be taking. But, I remember seeing the Foos playing at which was my local festival in Chelmsford. Such a great rock band. It's, again, it's so sad. At 50, a great loss to the industry, and you sort of saw like the reaction and the kind of outpouring about, him as a person and, him as a musician, and what the music of the Foos meant to so many people. So that was obviously really, really sort of sad news to come out this week.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, like I say, I remember seeing him. He was just an absolute another level on stage kind of thing. And over lockdown, I remember he did a couple of like tutorial type videos. And even in them, and he's showing like these very, what to him were probably quite basic things. It was still just, how effortless it was actually watching some of those videos I remember watching of him. That was just amazing to kind of see. So I think obviously who knows how the Foos will come back from this, or when they'll come back from this. It's going to be very obviously tough times ahead for them as well to work out their next steps.
It's just so much when you go through that back catalogue, when you're talking about kind of, like Learn to Fly and Times Like These and like, Everlong especially, just kind of such iconic sort of tracks, for so many people. And like I say, I'm sure obviously for all of his family and friends and kind of all his team, and then, Dave and the rest of the band, it is going to take them kind of a little while to kind of deal with it. And I think that, possibly one of the other really sad things about that as well is how you've sort of seen that with this whole sort of social media culture and kind of, the way things are driven right now, that obviously there's tox reports and things that have been come to the press before kind of full details have been kind of shared, which I don't think is right. I think there's times when, people's privacy and people's families' privacy need to kind of be respected. And, I think that's one of the real sort of toxic things about, the state of the world and kind of the media and things right now. But obviously, a great loss, to music, and a great loss to a lot of people as well for just what he brought to the world.
That's it. Yeah, no, because it is just like I say, yeah, not nice, not what you want to hear. Obviously, they are due over here this year as well, aren't they? So obviously, we wait to see if dates like that will happen. I'm sure I've got tickets for London, the London Stadium show, I think, as well. So
Yeah.
as you can tell, us two listen to any music really.
Well, it just kind of always is. I think it's, although we cover country music, there's so much great music out there in the world, and I think that you just from the fan perspective, not just the covering it, you appreciate great music and you appreciate what it kind of brings to people, and that's why people connect to country music. It's all about the songs and the stories and the memories that come with it, and that's the same with rock and roll. That which is exactly what those guys did, and Dave Grohl started off as he was a drummer for Nirvana and kind of evolved when he was doing solo projects that he cut that demo where he just put Foo Fighters on, which was his solo stuff, and they then grew to like the biggest band, one of the biggest bands in the world. But just songs, stories, memories, and everything that comes with it. It's the same across all genres. There'll be people, people that will listen to rap and hip hop or soul or blues or kind of, even EDM and kind of dance. There's a lot of things that people take in from the music and remember from that. There'll be sort of times in their lives that, come to it. So, I think it's, music's a powerful tool. It heals, like everyone said, and we've seen that so much over the last 2 years. Um, but
And
yeah,
I think one other one for me while we're on new music news is Phil Collins has played his last ever live show this weekend. And again, just while we're on drummers and music, that is just one of those artists I can listen to anytime. Phil Collins, Genesis, I'm quite happily.
Yeah, I saw
Been
quite
back
a
to the
few
Mechanics in
people.
Guildford a few times.
I've seen a few people sort of posting and things, kind of, like that they were there at those kind of gigs and stuff. But yeah, it is really nice to kind of just appreciate kind of all sorts of music. And some days you want to sit down and country music's there for you, but equally, there's a time and a place, and what you need is something completely different. But on the subject of kind of country music and things that are coming out, we have had some releases and things this week. I sort of mentioned that while I was down on Brighton Seafront, that I got to kind of chill and fully digest one album in particular. I'm a huge Maren Morris fan. Have been pretty much from the first time I heard of her and started listening to her, like the day before, with the time difference and how things hit onto streaming platforms. My best friend in Perth, Emma, she was sort of sending me screenshots that she was listening to Humble Quest like before we could, and then like I say, I had the chance to just go right the way through it, and for the second week in a row after Hayley Whitters with Raised last week, this week we've just had something that's just amazing and just incredible and just so beautiful kind of all the way through. And she followed up Hero with Girl, and this is her third record now, and it just sort of keeps getting better and better. What you're hearing from there, obviously, Circles Around This Town was kind of the first track off the record, and the first song that she put out, which is sort of about her her journey about making it in kind of Nashville, but kind of just going through that. There's whatever you would dig for Marin, whether it would be the kind of that soulful kind of almost like church level sort of sound, or it's the kind of more sort of R&B sort of flavor, or the kind of slicker sounds, or the rockier sounds, whatever you gravitate towards. You've got everything on that record, and the way particularly you hear a lot of Ryan Hurd in terms of like kind of the backing vocals and things, and how that comes together is great. There's some just absolutely gorgeous tracks on there. Like one in particular, what would the world do? Just a piano ballad. Absolutely, stunning, and just sort of just shows her, how amazing that voice is. And then, Detours, another one on there that stands out. So I think, could potentially be a single and things for her as well. And Background Music as well was another one that really stood out. But I think it's a killer record, and you just seen what I mentioned Hayley before, but 2 weeks running, you've had girls that have put out something that's absolutely badass, and just really showing what country music's all about right now, and why it's so exciting and so dynamic, and what people are doing. And again, like we were talking about when we were talking about like with Taylor Hawkins and like the Foos before, just things being real. And I think that's what you definitely sort of hear from this record a lot. And if you haven't had the chance to check it out, it's definitely one that you can just sort of it's there for the times that you need it, which is so diverse across it. And yeah, so I was really looking forward to it. And I think always when you're really pumped about an album that kind of you don't get kind of like on advance and stuff, and you get to like wait up till midnight as a fan and be there sort of pressing it at the first time, it's you just really hope it meets that expectation. And for me, it really did.
So I've got 3 summer kind of time tracks next. The sun's been shining. Okay, not today, but the sun had been shining. So it does feel like country artists kind of know that, this late March, early April time, that is their time to get their summer song out and then let it get momentum ready for those kind of May, June, July months. So first off, heading over to Canada, we have James Barker Band have come back with their new track, Wasting Whiskey. This one from Jake Owen I really like, called Up There Down Here. Very catchy song. We'll definitely like live.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's never been here, so chance of seeing it live over here is still slim to none probably. But I think obviously over in North America, that one will go down quite well. And then final one from me was the new Dylan Scott song, Living My Best Life. Again, another very catchy, very summertime vibe heavy kind of track. And that is going to be the first release from his upcoming album, which he also announced at the same time, of the same name, Living My Best Life, that is coming out on the 5th of August. So he's definitely going to, I think, hopefully that does set this kind of feel-good tone and feel-good vibe for the album, because I think he's started on quite a high with this one. So I'm looking forward to kind of what's coming from the rest of the tracks, which should be quite cool. I'm just going to bring up
Dylan Scott's definitely somebody that I think that I really hope's going to make a kind of push to come over here. Kind of now, obviously, we've sort of seen that he's got like a publicist in the UK, and I remember seeing him in 2019. No,
yeah,
you lose track of years when stuff was. So when I was last over in Nashville at CMA Fest, and he'd opened up the Riverfront stage on so we braved it. So if you've ever been to CMA Fest in Nashville, the Riverfront stage is like, it's it's on par with Satan's jockstrap really, about how hot it is down there, because you have no shade. It's absolutely baking, and you realise how mad some of these Americans are, that they're starting drinking at like 10 o'clock in the morning. It's like, how do you do it? It's going to get to like 40 degrees out here where you've got no shade. And most of them aren't putting sun cream on, and it's like, you're going to just fry. But yeah, so we were kind of there, and I remember because like Maddie and Tay were playing that morning as well, and I think they were on straight after. So we got down. I didn't really know a huge amount about Dylan at the time, but he was really cool. Brings a really great show, and you kind of look at the stuff he's put out over the last couple of years. He's got a really solid.
And then songwriting wise, he's done there's 16 tracks on the album, of which he's actually written 8 of them. And looking through the list of songwriters, it's some pretty impressive names. We've got Hardy, Hunter Phelps, Morgan Wallen. The track "Living My Best Life" was written by Tyler Hubbard, Brian Kelly, and Thomas Rhett. It's not a bad duo to have involved. So it's I think there's definitely going to be quite a lot of exciting songs, and I think this could be, say, the next one to really start to push him onto that headliner stage and making waves this side as well, because I think he's probably one of those who is probably a bit under the radar right now over here. So I think this could be that one that sees him kind of break through, like we've seen with so many this side.
I think I may have had a brief moment of technical difficulty during the
was I talking to myself?
Well, I don't know, because I was talking and I kind of had like wheels of death kind of appearing. But what it probably is like if one of my housemates was like loitering and not making any effort to get away, standing right in front of the router, it's like Virgin just, I don't know, doesn't like me. So, but yeah, so that's kind of new music stuff. And yeah, we put a load of content and things out on the site. Pretty much all of our C2C pieces are now online.
Yep.
So we had the Tabor interview with Tabor Bay, Tierra Kennedy, Lacey Tay Booth. I think the Calista Clark came out this week as well.
Yep.
Also, we had my chat with Sam Outlaw ahead of the tour. That's kind of there. And I know the first part of my review is on. The second part says get in a lot. Get in. So obviously making reference to our new favourite Australian duo, Seaforth, who were definitely big favourites for a lot of people here during C2C. So yeah, so that'll be kind of sort of coming with all my thoughts on sort of artists and the thoughts of the festival, you know, outside the main arena itself.
And you have done one this week, haven't you? We've spoken with a Canadian artist this week. We're going to hold off until the release of her new single. So that's a song by Sycamore, which again is probably a name not too familiar in these parts.
She's definitely someone. She's gonna be coming into kind of release cycle kind of through April, and there's going to be kind of plenty of new music and stuff on the way from her. But she's definitely an artist a lot of people like. Very different what she does. I think I sort of talked a lot with her about how there's definitely kind of like almost like Dua Lipa and like Lana Del Rey type vibes from her, but kind of in a country sort of standpoint. And she's great fun. I think people really kind of like what she does, and her sounds really up tempo and really cool. So big on that, and like so that'll be a piece that will sort of come in a couple of weeks or so. But also I spoke to Rumour this week, which again was a really cool chance to catch up with her. She's going to be playing at the Long Road Festival later this summer, and also has a new record on the way, which is the second installment of her B-sides and rarities that she kind of first put out. I think it was about 7 years ago, actually, she put the first part of that out. She obviously put albums out in between, but we had a really cool chat this week to talk about that and to talk about her moving back to the UK and, you know, getting out to play some songs again. So we've got plenty on the horizon to come.
Always busy.
Or trying to look busy.
That's the way to do it, isn't it? Definitely.
Exactly.
Well,
but yeah,
we've done well. Look, I even had my TV off tonight, so I haven't been distracted by anything. There was no shouting at goals or anything. The Grand Prix finished.
I did.
I haven't got any ice hockey on tonight. I've done well.
I'd said to you before, like I genuinely had to sort of work out, like had the clock changed, like today, and also had my phone updated, because like I'd sort of text mum, and it's like, is it really 7:30 and it's still light outside? And mum's like, yeah, the light, you know, the clocks have changed today. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And I completely sort of forgot, because I think that's the thing. It's like once you've sort of got over like being sort of housebound kind of through COVID and sort of in jail for that, and then go back out into the world very suddenly, it's like, you know, for 2 days running, you sort of get to like, oh, like, you know, your body's like, what is all this? It's like, you need to order me pizza and just lie in bed all day because I'm tired.
But we now have nice light evenings. That's the main thing for this week.
Yeah,
cannot wait.
It is indeed. Yeah. Well, TTFN. Ta-ta for now. And
see you all next week.
See you next week.